Today, I'd like to talk to you about turning design and making into a massive multiplayer online game. And to just be specific about what I mean by making, I'm not talking about the maker movement. I'm talking about real products, buildings, and films that all of us interact with every day, the real stuff that makes up the world around us. And to begin this conversation, I want to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. And specifically, I want to talk about a really cool scene in the movie where Peter Parker is in the back of one of Tony Stark's private jets, and he's engaged in a design process. Now, ideally, I would show you the entire scene, but it costs far too much to license that scene for a 10-minute presentation. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. In the scene, Peter Parker is wearing just normal glasses, and he's seeing projected on his arms and on his body various electronics, mechanisms, contraptions that his hands would use as part of a brand new Spidey suit. And he's making decisions, throwing off things, and the computer is throwing ideas at him and collaborating with him to try to find out what the best Spidey suit design is. And when it was all over, the suit's printed up for him right there, and he puts it on. Fantastical stuff, all right? Possible? Probably not today. But let's just keep in mind that it wasn't that long ago that people thought the Dick Tracy watch was fantastical. And look at that ugly watch. I mean, it's an ugly radio with a weird little screen on it. It takes up most of his wrist. Today, we have a device we hold in our hands that's beautiful and powerful. Not only does it do everything the Dick Tracy watch does, but it actually tells us what we want to do during our day, helps us get there, and you know what? It even gives us suggestions on what we might want to do next, all on top of a powerful compute platform. And you know, it's only a matter of time before that shows up in the exact same form on our wrist. We already have it today. It just doesn't do the video part. But you know, perhaps what's really more misleading about the Peter Parker story is that it perpetuates this myth of design and making being this lone genius process where somebody comes up with a brilliant idea and somehow they solve all the problems. The truth is much more complicated. Design is a messy, multidisciplinary process where people from different backgrounds with different skill sets come together to try to solve really complex problems. There's architects, product designers, engineers, construction professionals, manufacturing professionals. They don't always understand each other. They can't always get the right ideas across. There's lots of confusion. It all comes together in a very messy, highly disorganized, highly unfacilitated way. But it happens, and it happens over and over again. But because there's information lost during the process, because people don't always understand people, because there's things lost in translation between the disciplines, there's also a lot of frustration, a lot of rework, a lot of redoing. What if we could do better? What if we could make design and making maybe a little bit more like an esport, right? This is an example of what an esport looks like. And you know, humor me for a minute, it's an analogy. I don't expect people to design and make in an exact scenario like this, but what you're seeing here is a group of people working together on a shared objective in a virtual world that applies constraints. The machine is actually trying to prevent people from winning. Now the teams are competing against each other, but they're also competing against the machine. But what if we could reverse that paradigm? What if we could have the machine help people win? What if the machine told you where the treasure was, told you where the key was, told you how to solve the riddle so that you could win the game? Would anybody want to design and make something this way? Would anybody want to interact with a computer in a virtual world to create something? Well, I can tell you some people do, but I can definitely tell you that the next generation wants to. So this is my daughter having a virtual Minecraft play date with a friend during our stay-at-home orders in California. She's working in Minecraft. They're working on a brand new realm together, creating beautiful constructs, buildings, villages. And at the same time, she plopped another iPad next to her where her friend's on FaceTime. So they turn, they argue with each other, they debate, they go back to working together inside of Minecraft, they argue and debate. Sometimes they actually yell at each other, but they solve the problem together in this hacked together virtual world, and they're perfectly comfortable with it. They really want to work this way. And sometimes when they're together physically, they do exactly the same thing. So what if we could create a system like this for teams that are trying to design and build things? Something that's not only a canvas for a common view of what you're designing and making, but it's also providing you information that helps you create new ideas. It's facilitating the creative energy of architects, engineers, construction professionals, manufacturers, and helping them make choices about the least amount of material to build something, design choices that create the least amount of energy used when whatever is built or manufactured, and doing it at a fraction of the cost of what they used to do. More and more, people are going to be interacting with machines like this, and it's going to change the way people design and make. It's going to make it more fun, like the way my daughter works with Minecraft. And to give you an example of some of the technologies we're working on today to enable this, I want to take you first through a customer. This customer is Van Wijnen. They're a design make firm that builds modular homes in the Netherlands. They actually specialize in building entire subdivisions. Now, they're absolutely immersed in the current messy process, but they're also using machine intelligence to optimize how they design and how they ultimately finalize what they make on site inside the Netherlands. And we actually worked with them jointly on a project to help them capture constraints and use AI to generate design potential for them. So they input the property lines, the height limits, the number of units desired, where they want the natural light to fall, how much garden space they want, what's the minimum distance or what's the optimal distance for getting to all the garden space, and what kind of sustainable materials they want to use. And the computer generated tons of options for them, tons of potential layouts for an entire subdivision. And they were able to choose ideas that they would have never achieved on their own. And if they hadn't been able to achieve them on their own, they got them much faster. So the machine facilitated a part of the process with them and actually allowed them to get to better outcomes. Outcomes like this: beautiful, prefabricated, highly sustainable communities where people interact on a regular basis and all have quick and easy access to shared spaces. Now, another thing we're working on is what we like to call the learning engine. Now, for those of you who have ever been exposed to a design tool, they're pretty complicated. They're not something that's really easy to learn and get to know how to use. But what this tool does, and this is actually tracking my usage of a particular design tool in a company called Fusion, the learning engine tracks how you're using the tool, what you're trying to accomplish, and actually, as we move forward, makes suggestions about what you might want to learn next and how you might want to learn it. And it also compares you to what best in class is for your discipline or for someone who's trying to accomplish the same things you're trying to do. So in this process, the machine isn't helping you come up with new designs, it's helping you use the tools better so that you can be more effective at creating and modifying your designs. This is another place that we're going with regards to the future. Now, I can tell you the next generation is going to want to work this way. They're going to be incredibly comfortable with machine-facilitated designs, with virtual and physical combinations, working with distributed teams, and having a machine help them understand each other. But there's people in the current generation that want this too. This is the future of design and making, and it's going to help us build better. We're going to be able to meet more constraints around sustainability, resilience, and equity. And we're going to be able to solve problems in ways we've never been able to before. And I'm looking forward to making this possible. And I hope some of you in the future can work with us to make it possible too. Thank you very much.